Yeah, HQ. Welcome aboard. I'm Eric Casillas with Jonathan Jones. Monday Night Football wrapping up the week. This was a good one. Rams, Bucks in Tampa. Both teams in the NFC thinking, you know, the Super Bowl's here. Maybe we'll get back if we're the Rams, and the Bucks, maybe we won't have to leave. Let's take a look how it all went down from Raymond James. Exciting game in this one. Tom Brady and the Bucks trying to keep pace with the Saints. Meanwhile, Jared Goff, Rams could take over their division lead with a win. First Rams possession, no score, 11th play of the drive. Jared Goff rolling. Robert Woods, professional, 4-yard touchdown. Rams up 7-0. Goff 67, 68 yards in the opening drive. Ensuing possession, Bucks looking to respond. Tom Brady, Mike Evans will not be denied. Yeah, he scores on that one. He had just gotten roughhoused by the defense and then immediately responds with some roughhousing of his own. Anytime you can say roughhouse, it works. Rams, they'd lead at half. Bucks looking to come back. That's not going to get it done. Jordan Fuller picks off TB12, brings it back into Bucks territory. Ooh, Kangles. Don't worry about it. I'm not even wearing a Kangle hat. We're all good today. Rams needing to capitalize. Off the interception inside the 5. Goff. Cam Akers. Florida State. First touchdown NFL for the rookie. Rams up 24-17. Bucks looking to come back. Dunking. If you can dunk in the NFL, that's how you do it. Chris Godwin, touchdown. We're tied at 24. Rams got a field goal, so they have the lead. Bucks have to respond or this thing's over. Inside 2 minutes. Brady down the seat. Jordan Fuller, second pick of the game. Tom Brady, 1 out of 9 with 2 interceptions on throws of more than 15 yards down the field. Jump up, and get down. Rams win 27-24. Rams improved to 32-0 under Sean McVay when they lead at halftime. Amazing. Bucks, they fall to 1-3 in primetime games this season. And it looked like their division hopes are now over as they're functionally 3 games behind the Saints. Rams were getting points, so they win the spread. They win on the money line. And oh, by the way, a William Hill bettor took home $570,000 after dropping $200K on a money line bet on the Rams to win outright, which they did. Over comes in. Total at kickoff was 47.5. All right. Bucks are like, hey, we're just playing Sunday, like 1, 4 o'clock Eastern time, that kind of thing. We score more than twice as many points. We let up basically a touchdown less a game, and obviously the record is way better when we're not playing on Thursday night, Monday night, or Sunday night. All right, everybody in the pool for this one. Ryan McFadden, 2-time Super Bowl champ with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Scott Pioli, 5-time NFL Executive of the Year. Let's start with the winners here. Scott, Rams, we sort of said before the game, not really quite sure who they are. What did they show you tonight?
Well, they showed me that they could play very, very well in offense and not have to run the ball. Jared Goff played a very good game, a very efficient game, and they were definitely the better team tonight. And like I said before the game, Eric, I'm not sure what this team was, but they played very well in offense. And I'll tell you, I thought the defense played really, really well, particularly to start the game off. Even though Aaron Donald's game was mitigated, the rest of the defensive front and the rest of the team played a really solid game. And they are clearly a better football team than people have thought, myself included.
B-Mac, how much you willing to raise the Rams after this performance? I mean, it's a week-to-week league, but this was a pretty good performance. Prime time across the country, beating Tom Brady in his house. And as Scott pointed out, they were the better team. This wasn't fluky. They were the better team. What do you think of the Rams now?
Big win. Big win. I think they're a playoff caliber team. I have my concerns with the inability to run the football, but what they're doing now is they're using the quick game as a form of extended runs. You know, quick games, getting the ball out of Jared Goff's hands extremely fast, especially over the middle of the football field. And then you talk about quick outs and things like that. So they have to implement that part of their game until they find a way to establish a true ground and pound attack. So that's a concern of mine. Also, penalties and being smart with the football. They tried to put Tampa right back in this ball game, but their defense, I'm high on this team because I really love the defense. Scott talked about Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald didn't really play the dominating play that he's been able to showcase throughout the year, but they still made plays in the secondary. This is a young, talented secondary, and they've gotten better week in and week out. And because of them and how they put pressure on Tom Brady, not just sacking him, but getting guys in front of him, closing his passing window, being able to create turnovers, they came up with a huge, much-needed win.
JJ, a lot to like about what the Rams did tonight. Where did they impress you the most?
You know, that they were able to attack, that Jared Goff was able to attack those corners, Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy-Bunting, that he did not at all shy away from those guys. Both of them got targeted 9 times, and both of them gave up 6 catches for about 80 yards apiece. I was very impressed by Jared Goff tonight, because I was anticipating Todd Bowles sending a bunch of blitzes to him and him not being able to handle it, sort of looking a lot like what he looked like against Brian Flores and the Dolphins earlier in the season. And instead, he handled it expertly, certainly in the first half where he was 9 of 9 against the blitz, and it just kind of continued on into the second half. Obviously, he made a mistake there in the second half, but I was impressed by him targeting those corners who have played themselves really into a lot of Pro Bowl talk this season. And then I look at the Rams and I say, where's their bad loss? You know, throughout this season, you know, we went into this game and we said, all right, they're 4-0 against the NFC East, but they're 2-3 against everybody else. Okay, well, they lost to the Bills. They lost to Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers, and then they lost to the Miami Dolphins. It's not that they, you know, lost to the Browns at some point without Baker Mayfield. It's not that they had that weird loss to a team that's 2-7 right now. You know, they've lost to legitimate opponents. And so the fact that they were able to hang into this one and win now, you know, consecutive fantastic wins against playoff caliber teams. Kudos to the Rams.
And you know, you mentioned that Bills game. That was almost a historic comeback. They didn't quit.
That's right.
They were way down, came way back, took the lead. It was kind of a weird call. Otherwise, that would have been a win on the road in Buffalo. Now let's turn it over to Tampa. What got exposed tonight with the Bucs that's going to need to get cleaned up quickly, or else, Scott Pioli?
Well, I think the offense got exposed in a number of ways that they just could not get the running game going. And as we always talk about, if you don't get the running game going, it's going to affect your pass offense. Tom Brady was off his game tonight. He overthrew a couple of balls. He was off the mark. Something wasn't right with the offense tonight. And, you know, I just don't like the fact that they only called 18 runs this entire game. And a number of those runs were actually checks at the line of scrimmage that we heard and saw Tom Brady make. So something's out of sync with the offense. Defensively, Eric, I talked about this at halftime. I just think that the tackling was terrible. Wasn't crazy with how much zone they were playing and how much they allowed to happen. Something was off with this entire football team tonight. And again, defensively, I was just so disappointed with the missed tackles and the number of yards after contact and after catch that the Rams had, and that was all at the hands of a poor defensive performance by the Buccaneers.
Yeah, you go offense and defense in there. Scott, on offense, Tom Brady, 42% completion percentage, 2 interceptions in the second half. Yuck. You also mentioned what happened on defense there. B-Mac, same question to you. Where did Tampa get exposed? Is it fixable?
The offensive line was bad. They can't run the football, and Tom Brady was seeing ghosts tonight. That's an issue. That has been an issue when you look at the primetime games. You put up the stat, EK, earlier about how bad they've been in primetime games. You know why? They're playing against better competition than a 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. And because of that, they haven't lived up to the standard. They're not reaching the expectations. The offensive line, they're soft. They could not establish the ground game at the line of scrimmage. And they only tried to run the football 18 times. And then when they weren't running the football or trying to, Tom Brady was seeing ghosts. I remember growing up and growing up with my uncle, and every time he used to walk past me, he would hit me in my head, hit me in my head, hit me in my head. And at some point in time, when he would walk past, he wouldn't even try to hit me, but I was ducking because I was so used to him hitting me in my head. Tom Brady was getting hit, and he was flinching when people weren't even there. He doesn't trust the offensive line. They have to find a way to get better play on the offensive line, because the personnel is what the personnel now is what the personnel will be throughout the season. They acquired Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette. They should have thought about the offensive line, because that was an issue for all of us in the beginning of the season, especially when you talk about a guy like Tom Brady, who's not as athletic as the previous quarterback that they had. Now you see why the offensive linemen are so important, because Tom Brady was seeing ghosts. He was flinching. and his uncle was not trying to hit him in the head.
See, I kind of thought that the lead for those two guys would have been, I thought the Buck corners got exposed. I mean, you had an above-average quarterback and two above-average receivers, and Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, they ate. They feasted. They lit those guys up. They did it all over the place. That, to me, was sort of the lead here is, are they good enough to cover really good receivers in a big spot in a playoff game? Did you see it? I mean, talk to me about that part of it. Everything they said was 100% right, but now let's focus on the corners. Is it fixable? Did these guys get exposed tonight?
Well, they got a little bit exposed. I mean, these guys are good. Now, first of all, listen, you always hear those guys get paid too. So Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, B-Mac, I think you were about to allude to it. Those guys are really good, and Cooper Kupp had a hell of a game tonight. But you look at it, and Carlton Davis, 6 receptions on 9 targets for 85 yards. You go to Sean Murphy-Bunting, mostly working in the slot against Cooper Kupp, so you know that he got eaten up for 6 catches and 83 yards, and then Goff was able to work the second level against the linebackers early on in that contest. So, were they exposed a little bit? Do you expect them to play better? Yes. Now, do I believe in the defensive backs of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I still do, because I also remember what they did not that long ago to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and I have a great deal of respect for what Aaron Rodgers does. If they're going to play in the postseason, and right now they are the 7th seed, and the LA Rams have now rocketed back up to the top of the NFC West, they better hope that they get that Saturday afternoon at 4:30 kick rather than whatever's at night, because I think we know that these Bucs, for whatever reason, hate playing past 8 p.m. Eastern time.
One thing I like to highlight, Sean McVay coached a wonderful game. The reason why I say that offensively, the scheme was to come into this ball game and make Tampa go into something that they're not defensively, which is a zone concept team. Todd Bowles loves to do what? Bring pressure, bring extra hats. But when you go tempo, guys, that will neutralize the blitzing. Because now, as a defender, when we know you're going tempo, we're trying to look to the sideline to get the call, and now we're just playing football. So now if you have bump and run corners, they're not getting in your face because they can't afford to, because you're going tempo. If you have an aggressive play caller, he's not calling a lot of blitz concepts because you're going tempo. Not to mention if you're doing tempo with an empty formation of 4 wide receivers. So that was a unique game plan that Sean McVay came up with, and because of that, we saw so much zone concept. He took Todd Bowles out of what Todd Bowles is as a play caller, which is something that a lot of play callers offensively don't do. But he had a quality game plan in place to take the foot, to make Todd Bowles take his foot off the gas, and they executed it for basically the entire ball game.
And B-Mac, I agree. They definitely were playing a lot of zone, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. So they were softer. They were allowing the passes to be completed. But to me, again, I haven't seen the numbers yet, but I can't wait to see what the numbers were for yards after catch, but then again, yards after contact. The number of missed tackles by the corners, the safeties, and the backers, the amount of yardage that was piled up, because, again, they called a certain type of defense that was zoned. They were allowing them space. But when it came time to make a tackle and stop someone short of the sticks, they couldn't do it. Not only weren't they stopping them short of the sticks, but they were letting them extend it further down the field. And really, regardless of what the calls were and how Todd was going to make the calls tonight, the execution, in my opinion, by the players themselves was really, really poor tonight.
Yeah, missed tackles, bad scheme, too much zone. Bottom line is Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods had 23 catches for 275 yards tonight. Two guys, 23 catches, 275 yards tonight. Those are astounding statistics from those two guys. All right, now, it's never all good when you win. It's never all bad when you lose. So let's flip it a little bit. What were the positives? What'd you take that was good from Tampa that you go, you know what? I know they lost, but Scott Pioli, what'd you like with Tampa tonight?
Eric, you're asking me to be positive. There's not a whole lot that I'm positive about with this game. Again, I just can't find a whole lot that I was excited about, other than the simple fact when the game started, I think they did a good job of adjusting in the second and third and fourth series. But then once they adjusted, the Rams readjusted, and it really didn't help the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at all. I'm finding a whole lot to be not a whole lot to be positive about with the Buccaneers tonight, Eric.
Well, I guess for me, The one positive thing I took away from Tampa's loss, they only had 2 penalties. That's a positive. Usually when you watch the Buccaneers play, they're a very undisciplined group, right? You see penalties on both sides of the football field. They only had 2 penalties. And also, too, the run defense stood up once again. I think they allowed maybe a yard, 1.9 yards per carry on the ground game. So they stood up once again. So those are the only 2 positives I can take away from Tampa's loss. The run defense, once again, dominated. And they only had 2 penalties. That's pretty good football.
That's right, B-Mac. They would have had 3 penalties on that second forward pass at Tom Brady's, but Sean McVay declined that one. Didn't know that was possible, but the rule book says it is. My one positive is, and this is not about tonight, this is not about the short term, it's about the long term. Tom Brady was absolutely trying to get Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin way more involved. Those 2 led the team in targets. Antonio Brown with 13, Chris Godwin with 10. We know that Godwin was dealing with a hand injury about midway through the season. And so, obviously Antonio Brown just coming on 3 weeks ago. And so they need to build that rapport. And it seems like he has it with Mike Evans. It seems like he has it back with Rob Gronkowski, who was only held to 25 yards tonight, and he probably doesn't have it and is not going to get it with Cameron Brate. But you got to figure it out with those 2 guys, AB and Chris Godwin. And so maybe this plants the seed moving forward for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that we all are expecting to play into January. How deep into January may very well rely on Tom Brady's rapport with his wide receivers.
I'll throw in there, look, the Rams tonight, even though they won, 21 carries for 37 yards. Basically getting a yard and a half per tote, and they had 21 of them. So they did a pretty good job against the run. I always try to end this thing on a positive note. You guys did an A-plus job breaking down the game. Well done, Scott Pioli, B-Mac, JJ. You want more B-Mac? We have more B-Mac. Teams up with Patrick Peterson. All things covered. See, they're both cornerbacks.
I get it.
Get it? Well, not everybody. Hey, you know how many times I saw the movie Invincible before my kid pointed out that his name is Vince, and that's why they called it Invincible? I didn't realize that. Wow. I'm not that bright.
I got that one, though.
No, that one I got. Did you know that about Invincible?
I only watch good movies.
So, come on, Vince Papali. He was terrific. So is this promo, this podcast. It's awesome. You want to do it. You download, you subscribe, you enjoy. As I always say, you're going to enjoy this. You're going to enjoy the Rams. Jared Goff, 51 attempts, 376, 3 mighty touchdowns. He helped you out. He was H-U-G-E. As they say in New York, huge. Cam Akers scored for you, first career touchdown. Look at Cooper Kupp and Woods, as I mentioned. 28 targets, 23 catches, 275. Woods had the touchdown. All right, Tampa Bay, they didn't win. Brady put it in the end zone twice for you. Only gave you the 216 yards. The 2 picks didn't help either. Leonard Fournette scored. That was about it. Mike Evans, I know a lot of leagues at 50 yards. You get points there. Landed at 49. That's not the best, but he did give you 5 catches and a touchdown. Chris Godwin, 753 and a touchdown. A lot of balance at the wide receiver position. Antonio Brown actually had the most targets and the most catches and the most yards of the 3, but didn't score. And boy, I'll tell you, 13 targets for a measly 57 yards. That's not very efficient production per target. All right, Chris Towers jumping aboard, part of our great fantasy crew. As I always ask you whenever we do these primetime games, what did we learn tonight? I mean, Rams backfield, always wondering how that thing's going to evolve. And with the Bucs pass catchers, always wondering how that thing's going to evolve. Did you take anything from tonight that can go forward, or was it just all game script?
I mean, some of it was game script. Like, you look at the Rams, and they barely ran the ball, and it looked like that ended up being a pretty conscious decision. They just didn't think they were going to be able to get much going. And so, Cam Akers had his first game leading the team in carries last week. This week, it didn't really matter. Nobody was getting that opportunity. So I don't take too much away from that, except maybe you take away that Cam Akers isn't going to be the guy moving forward. This is still going to be a 3-way split. And I think that's the biggest thing with both of those teams. The Rams wide receivers, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, they're going to get a lot of work. They're going to get the ball in creative ways. Robert Woods getting carries. Cooper Kupp will get a carry or 2. They'll try to get them open, scheme them into ways that they can make plays with the ball in their hands. And they're going to be elite fantasy wide receivers because of that. Everyone else in this game, I'm not so sure about. I don't like any of the Rams tight ends. None of the Rams running backs look like anything more than a flex option. And the Buccaneers, man. I don't know if I like anybody on that team for fantasy except maybe Tom Brady. And even then, we've seen 2 really bad, disjointed performances from him in the 3 since Antonio Brown joined the team. He's at 6.1 yards per target in those 3 games. It's 2 games in a row, or 2 out of 3 with yards per target below 6. And then all 3 of the wide receivers. I don't know if this Antonio Brown thing is going to work. It seemed like a weird pickup to me. It seemed like an answer in search of a question. Nobody looked at the Buccaneers through the first 8 weeks of the season and thought, man, what they really need is another wide receiver. What they really need is another mouth to feed in this offense. And so I think it'll get better moving forward as they're better able to integrate Antonio Brown into the offense. But it's just not working right now. There's too many mouths to feed. And the offense just hasn't looked good. I know it's been a couple of tough matchups, the Saints and Rams, 2 of the 10 best defenses in the NFL. But this is exactly what I was worried about when they added Antonio Brown. There's no separation between the wide receivers. The offense isn't good enough to support all 3 of them. And frankly, I wouldn't mind if Antonio Brown just saw his role decline moving forward. Maybe it'll get better, but it's not working right now.
The one thing I would say is, in what we do here at fantasy, it's all buy low, sell high, right? Yeah. The whole world just saw Cooper Kupp go crazy. I would sell him right now. I mean, he hasn't scored in 6 straight games. He only has 2 touchdowns all year. They never look for him in the end zone and the goal line. And this was a game where Tampa Bay had freakishly bad tackling, which other people aren't going to have and they're not going to have in future weeks. This, to me, was like the time now when everybody just saw Cooper Kupp dominate that I would trade him for the whole world and get it in. Because, again, if you don't score touchdowns, you can be my kid's favorite player. We can put the poster on the wall. We can do all that. You just can't play on my fantasy team if you don't score touchdowns. And Cooper Kupp right now doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. If I'm going to get to the waiver wire, maybe I had an injury. Maybe one of my guys just sort of fallen off. Who are the top waiver wire targets?
It depends what you need. If you need a running back at all, Gus Edwards with J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram on the COVID-19 list, he's going to get, I think, a floor of 15 carries, probably 20 plus. We'll see a little bit of Justice Hill. And if you're really desperate, he can be an option as well. But Gus Edwards, he looks like a high-end number 2 RB in non-PPR leagues. The problem is he doesn't catch any passes. He's had 8 games in his career with at least 15 carries. He has 1 catch in those 8 games. Now, he's averaged 95 yards per game on the ground with 4 touchdowns in those 8 games. So he's still been productive, but more like a low-end number 2 running back in PPR. And I'm still going to start him in all formats against the Steelers. I think it's a tough matchup, but we just saw the Ravens running backs put up 200 yards against them a couple weeks ago. If it's not Gus Edwards, Taysom Hill at QB, not tight end. He's lost that at ESPN. He's just a QB everywhere now, which is the only thing that makes sense. Or Michael Pittman for the Colts. He's the number 1 wide receiver. Frustrating that he didn't get any targets in the second half yesterday, but they pretty much gave up on the passing game in the second half. So I think moving forward, he's got big play potential. He's the number 1 option, leading the team in targets, routes run. So he is someone who looks like at least a number 3 wide receiver moving forward, Michael Pittman.
There you go. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the time, bud.
Thank you.
You want more? We have more. Our fantasy football team, they're doing a terrific job, including at the podcast level. Fantasy football today in 5. They're not messing around. They get you right into it. You're in, you're out, you're knowledgeable, you're all set. You download, you subscribe, you enjoy.